The following program, Normal Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Normal Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents
We love the earth.
Normal Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Normal's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belvin.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Normal Show Live. It is Thursday, February 25th, 2010, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. We are here with 60 minutes of live news, talk, music, comedy, interviews, and more by, for, and about the cannabis community. And joining me in our virtual studio 90 miles away in beautiful Astoria, Oregon, at the tip of the Columbia River, my good friend and half sister, Cannabis Carrie.
Good day to you, Radical Ross.
Oh, good day to you. You're very polite today. That's very nice. As you all know, Cannabis Carrie brings us our news headlines right after our first break from CannabisFantastic.com. A couple stories for today. What are we looking forward to, Carrie?
Well, today we're going to look at a report from the Associated Press about the baby boomers, and we're also going to go to Colorado Springs, where it looks like a council meeting got a little bit heated this week.
Oh, boy. And also today, I'm going to be bringing NORML's legislative updates. We've got updates in 5 different states that are looking to make reforms in marijuana law. So we'll be talking about that right after Carrie's 2 stories. Thanks a lot, Carrie. Hang on the line there, and we'll be back to you when we get to our news segment. Also, coming up on today's show, it's our 4th Thursday, and on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays, we visit with speakers from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, those members of police, the military, judges, prosecutors, who've all found in their fight in the war on drugs that it's unwinnable and that we need to legalize all drugs. So joining us today is Larry S. Talley. He's a former Navy Special Forces intelligence officer who worked in Panama in the 90s and saw firsthand the futility of trying to eradicate drugs when people have a demand for them. Larry will be joining us at 30 after the hour for our Leap Speaker segment. And then at 45 after the hour, we've got a report from Wisconsin and a activist out there named Dan Schroeder. He is going to report on a recent raid by police of an activist home where activists were gathered to organize for the Jackie Rickert Medical Marijuana Act. Our own Gary Stork, the head of Madison NORML, was there and just barely missed getting caught in this raid. Dan will talk to us all about that at 45 after the hour. And today for our Daily Toker Tunes, John Doe from John Doe Radio brings us a great Groovin' Thursday tune. This one's a remix of one of our favorites here, Weed by MC Chris. This is called the Peanut Butter and Jelly Remix. We're looking forward to that right at 20 after the hour when we take our break. So stick with us. It's Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation. If you want to follow us on the web, just check us out at stash.normal.org for all of our latest blog posts. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at Radical Russ on Twitter. Stay tuned. We're coming back with the news right after this.
You're listening to Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 13 states today, and THCF has clinics in 8 of those states. Our doctors help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms such as in multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help you obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Montana, and now Michigan. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Remember, Mr. President, you once were just one bust away from being Barry the drug criminal.
Life ain't a box of chocolates gum. That's why people smoke weed and take bumps and drink way too damn much and get drunk and do it all over again first of the month. Rolling the dice.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's Normal News with Cannabis Carrie.
A growing number of older Americans are using illicit drugs, and groups seeking to reform U.S. drug policies see aging baby boomers as potent allies. The Associated Press is reporting this week that 2008 federal data shows that 2.9% of Americans over age 50 have smoked marijuana in the past year. Now, that's up from 1.9% in 2002. Experts predict that the numbers will continue to grow as baby boomers, who are considered to be born between 1946 and 1964, are aging. Some older drug users are continuing a lifelong habit, while others are revisiting their behaviors of their youth, sometimes for pain relief. Drug policy reformers see an opportunity in the trends. Keith Stroop of NORML points out that older Americans were once seen as our political opponents. They weren't familiar with marijuana and considered cannabis a very dangerous drug. It seems that now they understand that a non-toxic recreational drug like cannabis should not be a crime. Russ?
Well, yeah, this is something that we're finding in all the demographics as we look at the older generations. It seems like, once their kids are out of the house and they've retired and they don't have anyone to answer to anymore, people are returning back to the cannabis that they used back in the baby boom days, back in the summer of love era in the 70s and so on. But I always caution people to remember that when we talk about these marijuana statistics, these are people that are willing to admit breaking a state or federal law to a complete stranger over the telephone. So remember that. I think these numbers are actually much greater than what are being reported. We also found that the ages between 55 and 59 had really gone up like 5%, above 5%, almost approaching 6% in the number of people that are using cannabis. Also, cannabis use is very popular among young people from 18 to 30. The place where we find cannabis smoking and the people being against cannabis really takes place in that middle age, in that 35 to 49 period when people are concentrating on their careers and they have their families and so forth. So again, that's why we're saying that the older generation here are going to be such good allies in this continuing fight.
A city council meeting in Colorado Springs grew contentious this week when the vice mayor introduced a brand new medical marijuana dispensary ordinance that was hastily written by the city attorney. The vice mayor, Larry Small, had the city attorney's office draft a resolution that would have made it illegal to operate a dispensary within 1,000 feet of a school or residential area. There was also talk of putting a moratorium on any new dispensaries. Members of the industry told the council that they felt the sudden appearance of the brand new resolution was unfair, especially since the industry had taken part in a council-created citizens group that recently wrote a draft ordinance to regulate the industry. The process of writing that ordinance took 3 months and was expected that a lengthy public process would be undertaken before council voted on that measure. The new resolution, which would have shut down some of the current dispensaries, was written in a single evening at the city attorney's kitchen table. In the end, after much arguing, the council decided to allow current enforcement methods to suffice until the draft ordinance is considered at an undetermined later time.
We're seeing a lot of this going on in Colorado lately, up in Denver as well, and at the state level, where they realize that medical marijuana is incredibly popular in Colorado, as evidenced by the rapidly increasing rolls on their state registry. And, of course, the dispensing of medical marijuana is very popular, as evidenced by the 500 or so dispensaries in the Denver area. And so these governments now, these governmental agencies, they realize that if they open it up for public comment, that we are very devoted to this cause and that we're very organized around this cause. And now we actually have some of our people that have some money to spend on this cause, thanks to the dispensaries. So they don't want to hear public comment. They don't want to have us have any chance to have any input on these issues. And that's why they're continuing to call these meetings at the last moment and giving no notice of public comment. And in a situation like this one in Colorado Springs, just up and, writing new regulations overnight and giving nobody a chance to thoroughly vet them. We call on all of the legislators, not just in Colorado, but all around the country, to have a little more respect for our democratic process and allow the people to actually run this democracy. I mean, that is kind of what we were founded on, wasn't it? All right, it's my turn here to take over for the news. Thanks, Carrie, for those headlines. I'm bringing you NORML's weekly legislative update, and you can find this at NORML.org on the front page. People are always asking, what can they do to get involved? Well, the first thing you can do is check out NORML.org every week for these updates. If there's something going on in your state, we will have it listed every week, Wednesday or Thursday, this is posted. So let me get right to it. In Massachusetts, on Tuesday, March 2nd, members of the Joint Committee on the Judiciary will hear testimony in favor of Senate Bill 1801, which seeks to legally regulate the commercial production and distribution of marijuana for adults over 21 years of age. Basically, we're talking about legalization in the state of Massachusetts. The hearing is scheduled for 1 o'clock in room A1 of the Massachusetts State House. If you want to see our written testimony to the committee, we have that online. You can also watch videos of NORML representatives previously testifying in favor of this measure before lawmakers as well. Check all the links at norml.org. Now, moving on to Washington, D.C., members of the D.C. City Council's Committee on Health this week held their first meeting on the implementing of the district's new medical marijuana law. Council members heard several hours of testimony regarding B 18622, the Legalization of Marijuana for Medical Treatment Initiative Amendment Act of 2010, which seeks to implement local regulations regarding medical use and distribution of medical marijuana. Representatives from NORML testified on behalf of the measure, which is expected to be enacted by the council by May of this year. Now, if approved by the Washington, D.C. Council, Congress has 30 days to either approve or reject the measure. That's something a lot of folks don't realize about our nation's capital, is that the citizens in that district could come up with an entirely new way of regulating medical marijuana, and Congress could squash it. So we're not out of the woods yet in Washington, D.C. In South Dakota, representatives of the South Dakota Coalition for Compassion this week turned in nearly twice the required number of signatures necessary to place a medical marijuana legalization initiative on the November 2010 statewide ballot. You can read the text of the initiative or become involved in the campaign by visiting our links at norml.org. In Hawaii, members of the Senate Committee on Judiciary and Government Operations heard testimony today in favor of Senate Bill 2450, which seeks to reduce minor marijuana possession penalties from a criminal misdemeanor, punishable by up to 30 days in jail and a $1,000 fine, to a civil infraction, punishable by a fine only. This is basically decriminalization for the state of Hawaii. You can read our written testimony in support of the measure, which is co-sponsored by 19 of Hawaii's 25 senators, online at norml.org. That's good news because the Hawaii governor, Linda Lingle, is sure to veto any marijuana measure, so knowing that we have a veto-proof majority in the Senate is good news. In the state of Maryland, on Friday, February 26th at 1 p.m., the House Committee on Health and Government Operations and the House Committee on the Judiciary will jointly hear testimony regarding several legislative proposals that seek to legalize the use, production, and distribution of medical marijuana. NORML representatives will be in attendance and testifying at tomorrow's hearing. I believe it will be Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director, will be driving down to Maryland for that testimony. This is very important, folks, because as we know, Maryland is technically a state that recognizes medical use of marijuana, but it's not really what we call a medical marijuana state. The situation there is that they have something called affirmative defense, which says that marijuana is still illegal. You can still be busted for it. You can still be arrested for it. You can still be thrown in jail for it. But if you're using it medically, you can go to court and present your defense to a judge. And if he agrees that your use is medical, then you're off with just a $100 fine. Now, the problem with that affirmative defense is you got to hire a lawyer, you got to go to court, you got to pay your bail, and by the time you run an affirmative defense case, you might be out $20,000. So not much protection for Maryland's patients. That's why we're looking forward to this testimony on Friday, February 26th, 1 p.m. at the House Committee of Health and Government Operations in Maryland. And finally, in the state of New York, the Empire State, on Tuesday, members of the Senate Health Committee passed S. 4041, which seeks to allow state qualified patients to possess up to 2.5 ounces of medical marijuana for therapeutic purposes. To learn more about S. 4041 or its Assembly companion bill, visit NORML's Take Action Center, again, through links at norml.org. Now, as we're looking at New York, we're facing another very common situation in these East Coast states in that the latest iteration of the New York bill has removed the right to home grow. Just like we saw in New Jersey, they want to set it up so that patients are forced to get their medicine from dispensaries. And while this is a good turn, while it is good to have medical marijuana and to protect those sick and disabled people from arrest and prosecution, it's very important that we continue to fight for the right to home grow in these East Coast states. Without the right to home grow, the patients are subject to the whims of the state and its regulation of dispensaries. They may not be able to get as much variety of marijuana strains. They might find a strain that would work good for them and they could grow it at home, but they don't find it at their dispensary. And of course, the dispensary prices, due to black market prohibition, the market requires that those prices be at the same as the black market, which many patients cannot afford. So we encourage everyone in New York to support the bill, but also to lobby their legislators to amend the bill to allow the right of home grow. Now, a couple of little details I want to clear up here, or just get out here for you, that happened over the past couple of days. I was a guest yesterday on KKFI-FM in Kansas City, Missouri, on their Weed Wednesday shows. So anybody in Kansas City, Missouri area, check out Weed Wednesdays. It's always the last Wednesday of the month on KKFI.org. It's a community radio station. And I want to thank Vivacious Val, the host, and Brandon Ryan from Kansas City NORML for having me on the show. I had about a half-hour discussion. It was a lot of fun, and I was glad to help out and get people motivated out there in Kansas. If anyone out there in the state of Kansas is interested in starting a NORML chapter, send me an email at stash@norml.org, and I'll get you all the information you need to get started. And speaking of new NORML chapters, I am so proud to announce the formation of 2 new campus NORML chapters in the southern states. It's always great when we get a new NORML chapter in the South. So without further ado, let us announce. The University of Arkansas now has a NORML chapter, University of Arkansas NORML, or NORML at University of Arkansas, they prefer to be called. And in Georgia, another campus chapter. We've got a great campus chapter at University of Georgia. This one's at the University of West Georgia in Carrollton. If you're in those areas or you're a student and you'd like to start a NORML chapter, send me an email at stash@norml.org. And a new regional chapter in the state of California, NorCal NORML, for Northern California NORML, is up and running, and we'll get more official announcements, contact information, and all of that up on our website at norml.org/chapters. So if you're interested in getting involved with the NORML chapter, that's the first place to look. All right, we've got to take a break, and when we come back, we'll bring you your Daily Toker tunes. We've got some Groovin' Thursday music from John Doe Radio, a remix from MC Chris, and at the bottom of the hour, our Leap speaker. Stay tuned. This is NORML Show Live.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Normal Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Law420.com. Hello, I'm Russ Belville, Outreach Coordinator for NORML. In my job, I read literally hundreds of headlines each month involving nonviolent, productive citizens whose lives are ripped apart by a marijuana or drug arrest. Many citizens could avoid arrest by refusing police searches and remaining silent, but police are well trained to confuse and intimidate. That's why you have a right to speak to an attorney before answering any police questions. I hope you never need to exercise that right, but if you do, make your first call to the law offices of John C. Lucy IV. John Lucy is an accomplished criminal defense attorney with expertise in Oregon's medical marijuana law. John Lucy understands and respects cannabis and drug consumers of all backgrounds. Call John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit in downtown Portland. Address available at law420.com. That's John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit law420.com today.
Hi, this is Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director of NORML. We are the oldest, largest, and best-known marijuana law reform organization in America, and it's all because of your support. Take some time to join NORML at www.norml.org. Your membership supports this podcast, our websites, our policy research and analysis, and our annual conferences. Changing marijuana laws is a grassroots effort, and it starts with you, the stakeholder. Join NORML today and add your voice to the millions of cannabis consumers who demand equality with our beer-drinking friends.
It's time for your Daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420-friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Our pod-safe music is donated by freedom-loving musicians who support our goal of ending adult marijuana prohibition. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday, our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. Brought to you by the John Doe Radio Show, accurate and informative marijuana reform news and entertainment. Available on the THC Media Network and JohnDoeRadio.com. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now, here's some great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
I'm John Doe with your Groovin' Thursday tune. Make sure you check us out at JohnDoeRadio.com. This week we had a great interview with Franco from Greenhouse Seeds. One of my favorite interviews yet on John Doe Radio. Check it out. Get into Groovin' Thursday. Many of you have heard of the original version of the MC Chris tune, Weed. As I've highlighted it before, one of my favorite tunes. A laid-back flow of great vibes about how the good green is always by our side. Only gets better with fun remixes, and there are a few remixes of this song. If you know of the Peanut Butter and Jelly dance off Family Guy, you will be familiar with the groove of this Peanut Butter and Jelly Weed remix. And if you're familiar with Adult Swim on the Cartoon Network, you might be familiar with MC Chris's voice and work. He has wrote for and voiced characters for numerous shows on the network, including Aqua Teen Hunger Force, C-Lab 2021, and one of my all-time favorites, and I'm sure yours too, Space Ghost, Coast to Coast. The music you get from MC is not the usual wall-to-wall tunes on his CDs. For instance, on his album MC Chris Part 6, or I should say albums, MC Chris Part 6, Parts 1, 2, and 3, you get storylines and skits in between them all. And if you're a fan of the MC, you won't be disappointed with what you get. His latest album, MC Chris Goes to Hell, will be out later this spring. You can find tons of remixes that sometimes are even better than the original. Just Google MC Chris and do a little searching. I'm John Doe. This is MC Chris with Weed, the Peanut Butter and Jelly remix. Till next time, see ya.
Hey man, I just gotta say, the weed is by my side. It's always been there, always been there, always been there. The weed is by my side. It's always been there, always been there, always been there. The weed is by my side.
sure you're a friend of mine. Handshake with a prize inside. These are battle begins, hallucinogens. These wormies are weaponized. LSD and shrooms, I tried them. Was a time when I wouldn't deny them. All you need's one trip where you lose your shit. Kiss goodbye to the sky with diamonds. But I keep coming back like a jack is crack. Cause the weed's like crack cocaine. But the risk that you take is just getting baked. You're surely gonna see the next day. They say we fund Al Qaeda. Sounds like the government's killers. Let's get the enemies dome and the ninjas home to help a Christian tell us. Cause all we need is some weed and a laid back beat. Black lights, you can stereotype. Couple beanbag chairs and a lack of airs. A marathon of Price is Right. With the 411 for realsies, I'll freeze my Reese's pieces. It's like every time I pack a five, appetite suddenly increases. You know what a cracker mean. Green leaves my crack to beam. Addicted like gasoline. Just past the trees while I live that cracker dream. But I'm out of the streets for deep. I'm out of to take control. I ain't down with little MC growing up in the cloud of a secondhand smoke.
It only comes twice a day, but I don't care. It's 4:20 somewhere.
All right, time for our Cannabis Community Calendar tonight, Thursday, February 25th. There's a meeting for University of New Hampshire NORML at the MUB building. Check them out at norml.org/calendar. Pittsburgh NORML on Friday is having a fundraiser in support of House Bill 1393 for medical marijuana. Check them out at pittsburghnormal.org. On Saturday, February 27th, Oregon NORML is holding their twice-monthly cardholders meeting for members of the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program who are also members of Oregon NORML. You can check out more information on how to apply and how to be at the meeting at ornorml.org. Kansas City NORML is also having their public meeting on Saturday. Check out kcnormal.org for details or call 888-KC-NORML. And also beginning on Saturday, the THC Tour or Talking Hemp and Cannabis Tour. For more information on that and all of these events, check out the NORML calendar of events at norml.org.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Our marijuana laws are terribly unfair, and they make criminals out of law-abiding citizens. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges, and we are unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They are average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. And it's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
One of the most disturbing elements of the war on marijuana is how it has made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows firsthand the futility of the drug war and reaches out to the community and to current law enforcement to end our war on drugs through legalization. It's time now to speak to one such officer in our continuing look at law enforcement against prohibition. All right, we're very happy to be joined right now by Larry S. Talley. He's a former United States Naval Intelligence Specialist, retired, who worked on Navy Special Forces. He was in the Navy from 1987 through 2007 and was stationed at the Naval Special Warfare Unit 8 in the Republic of Panama from 1991 through 1996. He's now a speaker for law enforcement against prohibition. And Larry, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Russ. It's good to talk to everybody. I really like the new format here for the live show. I think this is really a really great step in the right direction for NORML and certainly for you. This is great.
Oh, thank you so much, Larry. Glad to have you here. And we just wanted to talk to you about your experiences here. I was reading your bio, and I love this quote that's at the top of your bio. It says, "During the time I spent attached to the U.S. Navy Special Forces, we failed only in one mission, the control of narcotics flow." Tell us about your experiences working in the Navy down there in Central America and how you came to that conclusion.
Well, Russ, it was, I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, and so I kind of had a right-wing, I want to say right-wing religious kind of upbringing, and typically, and you know, was a good old boy and joined the service. Once I got there, once I began to become more involved in the eradication efforts in South America, the futility of it really raced before me. There's some differences between, let's say, law enforcement generally and military generally, and so our center of gravities are somewhat different. A law enforcement officer would normally swear an oath of office to the law. Generally speaking, some states include the Constitution as part of that. There's generally an oath of office to the law, whereas the soldier or the sailor swears an oath of office to the Constitution.
Right.
So the center of gravities are a little bit different. So my point of view, when I was over there, and when I saw us, for instance, when we coated marijuana fields with chemicals, or I say the eradication forces, which are generally the host nation countries like Colombia and Bolivia would do most of their own eradication efforts. We would provide them support and advice and intelligence. And as they would do that, I would watch entire families be displaced off of sides of mountains in places like Bolivia, where they were cultivating coca plants for generations, 10, 20 generations. They've been cultivating marijuana and coca plants and using it in their daily life. And, it's part of their religious experience. It's part of their culture and their heritage. And that's when the futility of it really came upon me. I think I thought of it more of a rights issue. And who are we to impose our ethical values upon these people? Because our ethical values aren't really based on ethics and morality. They're based on finances and politics. So that was part of the futility of it. And the other part of it was, well, they just went to another side of a mountain and started up all over again. Mm-hmm. And then we were back out there 6 months later doing it all over again. And then every 6 months, all over again. And it was just really the imposition of our ethics and our morality onto those people throughout all of Central and South America. And then, of course, because of the Prohibition, once, the terrorist organizations that originated down there, they were primarily financed for years and years and years by Cuba. Once the economy in Cuba fell, then they picked up the drug trade. So essentially, it's been the war on drugs that fueled all of those South American terrorist organizations, like the Fuerzas Armadas Revolutionary Armed Forces, and Alvaro Lives, damn it, and there's a whole bunch of them, and they have killed Americans. Sendero Luminoso is really known for that. And all of those terrorist organizations were financed by the Prohibition, by American monies, by Americans and Europeans' quest for cocaine and marijuana. And since then, now they've grown, they've blown up. They're now harvesting poppies and heroin, and the drug trade has never stopped. I worked for General McCaffrey's office. While I was down in Panama, we were all subjected to General McCaffrey, and I had several conversations. I doubt he would remember me. I was a lowly in those days, but nonetheless, I interfaced with him on a couple of occasions, and that was a very interesting experience because he wholeheartedly supported that drug war and the futility of it. He didn't see and still doesn't see the futility of the drug war itself, and he's been a driving force in this whole prohibition all this time.
Yeah.
I've talked quite a bit, Russ, for that one question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk so long. Did I answer your question?
You did. Thank you. And you point out a lot of the things that people have pointed out with regard to our interdiction efforts in foreign countries, that these are crops that the peasant farmers have been growing for generations, and there's a lot of times not much more economic opportunity in their area to grow something better. So, we're stomping on their economies, which, doesn't really win the hearts and minds of the people when you're in those areas. Let's take this into a broader discussion in that you talked about the drug trafficking and the money that supports these terrorist organizations. How much do you think prohibition of drugs remains due to governments wanting the off-the-books black ops money from the drug traffic?
Black ops. Well, you talked a little bit there about black ops. Let me ask you if you can repeat that question just a little bit differently. I'm not sure I quite understand.
Well, I just mean, the prohibition of drugs obviously brings a lot of money into the accounts of these terrorist organizations that we are oftentimes sending our military to go fight. I'm thinking the Taliban in Afghanistan, and they make money off of poppies, and down in Colombia, the cocaine money that they're making, and in Mexico, the marijuana money they're making. So they obviously have a vested interest in prohibition continuing, so that they can continue to get that money. Is there a similar vested interest on our side of the border in keeping prohibition illegal for military or special forces or anyone to be able to make money on that side of the deal? I mean, I guess I'm referring to the CIA crack cocaine scandals of the 80s and the allegations of our armed forces being involved in this in some respect. Well,
our policies and our laws prohibit that from occurring. In that, if it does occur, if we have policy makers who are trying to keep these policies in place purely because of profiteering, because the military is profiteering, I really don't. I don't believe that.
Okay.
I refuse to believe that. Although there are going to be corrupt people in virtually every organization that exists. There are going to be people with their own agendas. As the organization exists itself, from a military point of view, I don't believe that would be the case. That would be so against my core values, which include the Constitution and everything that it stands for. I couldn't support it, and I know that if I couldn't support it, I know other people in uniform wouldn't support that either. And I don't believe that the president would support that. Whether or not we all agree he's a good or bad president, I don't believe he would support that. And I don't think the last president would either, but
okay.
Does that answer your question?
That's good. That's good. We're getting some questions in now from our folks in the chat room right now, asking live here at live.normal.org. And one of our questioners here, New Jersey Leaper, wanted to know, how do you deal with possible backlash from within the law enforcement community? Now, I know you were retired military, so let's shape it to that direction. Backlash from your former military compatriots or colleagues?
Yeah, there are some. There absolutely are. It depends on how it's explained. Certainly when LEAP stands for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and oftentimes when I go speak, I wear a T-shirt that says, cops say legalize. Legalize it. Ask me why. When you tell somebody, yeah, I think drugs need to be legalized, that's a blanket statement that paints a picture in their head of radical chaos. Mm-hmm. But that's not actually what LEAP is all about. LEAP is not about radical chaos. We're more about, law and order. And as long as we don't have control and regulation, then we're not going to have the kind of law and order that we need. Do my military compatriots agree? This is where the difference between law enforcement and military, some fundamental differences, and not everybody is the same, but I swear an oath to the Constitution, and so do my compatriots, my friends that served in uniform. And as we serve together, we have these kinds of conversations all the time. And generally speaking, most military people are for freedoms in this country. Whether it's for legalized drugs, maybe another story, but certainly most are coming around to legalize marijuana. It hasn't isolated me. To answer your question directly, it hasn't isolated me from my friends and my colleagues necessarily, but it has isolated me from a considerable amount of my family, which actually surprised me a great deal more. So, to that end, I don't associate with the law enforcement community necessarily. I work in a university, and I'm retired military, So I don't necessarily deal with the day-to-day operations of, what law enforcement, what those guys get. But I do understand that there is, for law enforcement officers within the organization, that there is most definitely issues when a law enforcement or a police officer is for the legalization of drugs. There's usually some controversy in the office. There's been a case that a police officer won a few years ago, or last year, in the Seattle area. I think it's up near your area, Russ.
Yeah.
I'm not on the internet, so I can't recall all the details of it, but he won a lawsuit where he was he was discriminated because of his political beliefs, and he eventually won his lawsuit for it.
That's right. We're speaking with Larry Talley. He's a former U.S. Naval Intelligence Special Forces officer from 87 through 2007, and currently a speaker for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Check out Law Enforcement Against Prohibition at leap.cc or at copsaylegalizedrugs.com. Larry, with your experience in Panama and in Central America there in the military, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the other side's military, the Panamanian military or these other countries, Colombia and so on, and those governments and their response to the war on drugs. Do you feel that those governments are basically just doing the bidding of America because of the economic realities? They have to? Or do they really have their hearts in it? Are they for all of these anti-drug measures that take place in Central America?
I think originally, early on, when the Reagan administration was pushing to just say no and really starting to crack down on South America, I think there was a concerted effort between South Americans. They were sold a story and a project that if we do this, then you're going to see the elimination of these terrorist groups. You're going to see lower crime. You're going to see these things. These are physical things that can affect your economy and improve the quality of life for your citizens. They haven't seen them, and they don't believe the song and dance. It's over. They're tired of it. They're meeting privately, talking about legalization privately, but they still want our federal dollars. So, yes, there's a concerted effort between what I've noticed in Central and South American countries, pretty much an overwhelming majority, some decriminalization and some changes in their measures. Obviously, Mexico made some changes, although I don't necessarily believe they were for the better, but they made their recent changes with allowing small possession amounts, although that did give the police more discretion, so that didn't really help them a lot. Mm-hmm. In most Central and South American countries, the police are the Army, or they have federal status. It just depends on the country. Panama was like that, because we took away their Army during Just Cause. But some of the other South American countries, pretty much what I've noticed, most police and federales will dismiss casual cocaine use and dismiss casual possession uses. They don't care. They're not going to take a 14-year-old kid to prison because they know that 14-year-old kid's going to have to go sit in a prison cell for 5 years before he gets a trial. There's a really good chance that he won't survive his time in prison before he gets to trial. And if he does, there's also a really good chance that he's going to have AIDS when he gets out of trial and then gets awarded more prison time just for simple possession. So most of them feel for those people because they are one of those people. So I see a lot of permissive-ness going on.
It's amazing changes. Yeah, sure. It's amazing changes that are taking place in Latin America, and we saw those three former Latin American presidents that came out in support of decriminalization. So things are changing. Larry Talley with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition and a former Special Forces officer in the Navy. Thank you so much for joining us here on NORML Show Live.
Thank you so much for having me, Ron.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hello, this is Webb Hubble. Life insurance is now available for responsible marijuana smokers. For years, responsible marijuana smokers have not been able to access affordable life insurance products. NORML uniquely supports cannabis consumers. 2 carriers have already agreed to offer all of their traditional life insurance products at all levels without excluding individuals who smoke marijuana responsibly. Help NORML and help yourself. If you've been declined for life insurance, are paying above market premiums, or simply want to know what now may be available in the way of insurance for marijuana smokers, contact me at info@mclaughlinonline.com or simply call me at 202-293-5566.
reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while and share. This is NORML Show Live.
Cause the day was hard and your work was long and you need a break from all that's wrong. You better look at the clock cause it's 4:19. Time to reach in that pocket for your bag of green and smoke that weed. Smoke that weed. Smoke that weed. Smoke that weed.
We don't need no stinking budget.
NORML, unlike any other marijuana or drug law reform organization, is built from the ground up by grassroots activists who are peaceably assembling to petition our government for a redress of our grievances, specifically regarding our inalienable right to the pursuit of happiness through the use of cannabis for medical, social, and personal reasons. We are the Marijuana Smokers Lobby, and we aren't just anti-prohibition, we are pro-marijuana. Every Monday, we take some time to talk to the citizens in local NORML chapters across the country and around the world, as well as others who are working to make a difference in the fight to end adult marijuana prohibition in this segment we call Grassroots Activism.
Hi, welcome to our Grassroots Activism segment. We are still working on getting our guest on the line in Wisconsin, so I'll begin by giving you just a little thumbnail sketch of what's going on here. This was in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and the post that I've got up at stash.norml.org will tell you more about it. It's called The Double Dose of the Legal Medicine Blues. And joining us from Waukesha, Wisconsin, I think from Waukesha, maybe from outside there, but joining us right now is our guest from Wisconsin, Dan Schroeder is joining us. Thanks, Dan, for being here on our show.
Hi, Russ. Dan K. Schrader here.
Hi.
2J Media Group.
Hi, Dan Schrader.
Glassworks. How you doing today?
Nice to have you here. We got, I posted something that you had written on an event that happened in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I don't know, this was 2 days ago. Can you tell us a little bit about this raid in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I sure can. There was a event in Waukesha titled the Grassroots Evening. It was brought in conjunction with Student Democratic Society and a number of just grassroots activists from Wisconsin that have been trying to help pass the Jackie Rickert medical marijuana bill, which is currently being considered in Wisconsin. It was an informational hearing, and it featured Gary Stork, president of Wisconsin NORML, and a communications director for IMLE, as well as the bill namesake, Jackie Rickert, from the Jackie Rickert Medical Marijuana Act, and founder of IMLE. Senator John Earp, co-sponsor of the bill, was there too speaking, and Rick Harris performed his anthem for Wisconsin medical marijuana patients, which is the Legal Medicine Blues song, which I was howling in the Waukesha County, Waukesha City Jailhouse, that is. The same evening, which was quite disturbing, about a half hour after we got to one of the organizers' houses, it was an apartment, and police knocked on the door just after Gary Stork had left. And there was a number of people that were there, just all medical patients, and peaceful gathering with good folks after a informational hearing in Wisconsin. And the police claimed they had no idea about it, and they had a quote anonymous tip and came in on us, and they took a couple of us away. So.
What did they? Was this having to do with the meeting itself? Were they targeting the meeting?
Well, it's difficult to say at this point without getting the police reports. The police officers involved claimed to have no idea that there was an event, for that matter, even a medical marijuana bill being considered in Wisconsin. However, the captains of the Waukesha County Drug Command Unit, the Metro Drug Task Force, is Captain Charles Wood, who spoke out heavily at the Madison December 15th hearing in 2009 against medical marijuana. It's interesting that his men were the ones that made this stance. So we'll know more when the police reports come out.
So there were arrests involved?
Yes, I was charged with possession of marijuana, possession of a controlled substance, for a small amount of alleged cannabis that was found in a search and seizure without the permission of the owners of the residence on the floor. And one of the officers involved said that he, quote, thought he may have seen me toss it on the ground prior to exiting the premises. When the officer had approached, it doesn't sound like much to me. So, I'm having trouble finding out where they got, where they had any cause to arrest me on it. But in any case, the officer, they approached us, and there was three individuals that were leaving, and I was letting the dog out, and they ended up forcing three of those medical patients to stand outside for over an hour at 20-degree weather. One of which was unable to attend their lobby day yesterday in Madison for the Jackie Rickert bill. And due to her fibromyalgia condition and her being forced to stand in 20-degree weather, much less. Some of these patients aren't even advised by the doctors to stand that long, much less in that kind of weather. I myself didn't even have a coat on, and was refused that. I was refused access to my medication. In fact, they told me before they read me my rights, they questioned me about my medication. And I told them blatantly extremely clearly that I was a medical patient and I needed my medicine, and that it was located in the trunk of the vehicle, parked in viewing distance of where we were parked. But they denied my access to those prescriptions, and they actually tried to charge me with possession of prescriptions for having a small emergency pile of pills in my possession. There was, I have one of those little tins you can get at Walgreens, and you've got one of my pills in it for my PTSD condition.
Wow. And,
they said that was terrible to have in there. I said they couldn't believe it, I said, well, wouldn't you rather have me have that, one pill of each for an emergency than have my entire bag of prescription bottles,
right,
which they wound up giving to one of the other medical patients who, frankly, I just met and I really don't know very well, and and it was an ex-addict who went through my medical pills and broke my confidential patient rights, as well as gave my medicine, my prescriptions to another person to hold on to. So I don't know. I'm very troubled by the whole thing. It's, and
wow.
It was quite a night.
Yeah, and excuse me if I missed this detail earlier, but were there any warrants involved in any of this?
Any what's that?
Warrants? Any sworn warrants?
No. There was no warrants at all.
Just a complaint from the anonymous, the anonymous tipster.
They claimed that there was an anonymous caller who said that there was a suspicious vagrant odor. So that was their probable cause.
Yeah.
If you will. I mean, I don't think it's probable cause. I'm not an attorney, but
the ever popular anonymous tip.
I know that I told them they couldn't come into this house, and it wasn't my residence, and I couldn't authorize them to do it. And when I was standing there before they took me away, the owner, one of the residents, told them the same thing.
So everyone refused to allow the search to continue. They exhibited their rights there, as saying, you don't have a warrant, you can't come in. But their excuse was the smell of marijuana was enough probable cause for them to come in.
Yes, they stated that they felt that they said, well, if this was a house, if you were in a house right now, we'd let this slide. But because you are in an apartment somewhere where people pay rent to stay next to you at, and those people can have 5-year-olds, they said, well, that's ridiculous. You're endangering children, they said.
I see.
And I said to the officer, well, what are you talking about? I don't understand where you're coming from. and he told me that was dangerous for the children. I said, well, what's dangerous about medication? For a patient that needs it. And I was able to spend some time with. I know you just talked about LEAP with someone recently, and I was able to spend a little bit of time with James Gierach from LEAP recently out of Illinois, who will be running for governor shortly. And he was able to share with me quite a bit of information about the education that's required of everyone in this country and all over. I was just amazed, and I was glad to be able to share some of that information with the Waukesha City Police Department. Unfortunately, they weren't receptive of it. They shut me down immediately and said that education. When I tried to explain that education was probably the appropriate way to go with a child on a medical issue, and when you're talking about medicine, he said that I was pissing him off, and I better shut up right away, or I'd be sorry. So that was enough for me.
It's amazing that they would discriminate against people in that way. If you're an apartment, if you're a poor person and you can only afford an apartment, well, then you don't have the same rights as someone who's rich and can afford a house. I guess that's the way it's working out in Wisconsin. And Dan Schrader, thank you for helping me understand how to pronounce both Schrader and Waukesha. I appreciate that. People in the chat room were making fun of my West Coast pronunciations. And we thank you for coming in here to the show and telling us about this. More information is available up on our blog at stash.normal.org. You can read Dan's writing on this issue. And to support the Jackie Rickert Medical Marijuana Act, check out madisonnormal.org, winormal.org, and Is My Medicine Legal Yet? At immly.org. They're real close to getting this passed. They just need a little bit more support. And Dan, I want to thank you again for coming on the show and visiting us here at Normal Show Live.
Sure, Russ, and real quick, thank you very much. I just want to let you know that we do have a brand new medical marijuana television station located on livestream.com/WIMMJ Community, COMMUNITY.
All right.
Which is the largest and fastest growing in medical marijuana channel in Wisconsin.
All right. We'll get that up on the chat room so people can get that written down. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Normal Show Live.
You plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. And it goes down smooth.
That's right, it's Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation. Every weekday, 1 p.m. Pacific, this show will replay at 3 p.m., 5 p.m., 7 p.m., and 9 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you tune in every weekday for the latest in marijuana news, talk, information, interviews, music, comedy, and more. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
You plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.